Welcome to the West Valley Center. Again,
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to West Valley Center for Spiritual Living. Hello, everybody online. And I'm really excited to be here this morning. And it's wonderful seeing beautiful faces that we haven't seen in a while. So thank you. And it's wonderful seeing new faces we haven't seen ever. So welcome. So it is really definitely a beautiful morning. Fun things. One, we had a board retreat the last couple of days, Friday night and Saturday all day. And so it's been about 2 years since we've done that. And it's just, I was telling Reverend Karen that, we're always getting caught up in the busyness, and when we do the board retreat, I always tell everybody, I explain to them it's like a love fest. Because we sit around and love on each other and just think about the possibilities of our community. And it was just a beautiful experience that we went through the last day and a half. And so we've got a lot of stuff percolating in the oven, and I'm one of those type of people that I smell the cookies baking, and I can't wait for it to get out of the oven. And that's kind of how I feel right now, so very excited. So the other thing, Norman, can you come up for a second? So I wanted to introduce Norman to everybody. So Norman is our sound booth guy, and he's always back there behind the scenes, and he has really taken over the sound booth for us the last couple of years, and whenever he's gone, we have a hard time. So we really want to welcome him. Thank him. So we got a little milestone going on here right now. It is his 18th birthday on Wednesday. So if you'd stand, we're going to sing happy birthday to him real quick before we get started. So, ready? Let's go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Norman. Happy birthday to you. So, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, go back to sound booth, bud. Get back to work. We got work to do. All right, so we come together every Sunday to remember our truth, that we're whole, perfect, and complete just the way that we are. And so that is what we start every Sunday, knowing that truth. And so one other thing that I would like to do, and I was talking to Reverend Karen about this, and I was inspired about this yesterday since all of the things we were working on, is that we've kind of changed the formatting of our service. And so and we're trying to get back into the groove of what that new service looks like for us. And so I want to add back into our new service our vision statement. So we're going to start saying our vision statement to start off the service. And people online, I'm going to work with Julie. She doesn't know it yet, so she's hearing it for the first time. I'm going to work with Julie, and she'll type in the vision statement in the chat room, and then you guys can say it with us next time. So we'll be prepared. So let's say our vision statement together. It's here up on the board. We are a loving, joy-filled community, honoring many paths to God as we learn and live the science of mind principles. And so it is. So now, if you just simply, oh, and one other thing, we have a really wonderful treat. We have our guest favorite musician renter from upstairs. She doesn't have to travel far, but she will definitely move you. And so I'm very excited to have her part of our service this morning. So if everybody will sit back, relax, open up your hearts and minds for Reverend Karen's message as we play our centering song. Thank you.
I will make a quiet place within my heart, and I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord. I will make a quiet place within my mind, and I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still and know I will make a quiet place within my life, and I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord. I will make a quiet place within my heart, and I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord. I will make a quiet place within my mind, and I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord.
Good morning. There's but one mind. That mind permeates all there is, all there ever was, and all there ever will be. That mind is infinite intelligence, wisdom, love, joy, beauty, abundance, health, prosperity. And we are part of this one mind individually. Each of us expresses love, joy, beauty, wisdom, abundance in all that we do and how we show up. And all there is. Celia, welcome back. We've missed you. And her beautiful music. It always makes us feel good. And Reverend Karen's wonderful message that will give us caveats that we can take with us all week long, that we can learn and grow from, and we can share. Because when we share what we know, we empower people. We can make it better, which I feel right now we need to do. So I just release all these words into the law, knowing that it is already done. And together we say, so it is. Okay, guys, I'm doing Science of Mind today. My favorite topic. This comes from Science of Mind, the chapter from the Teachings of Jesus, page 478. It's about love. Love is a central flame of the universe, nay, the very fire itself. It is written that God is love, and that we are his expressed likeness, the image of the eternal being. Love is self-giving through creation, an impartation of the divine through the human. Love is an essence, an atmosphere, which defies analysis, as is life itself. It is that which is and cannot be explained. It is common to all people, to all animal life, and evident in the response of plants to those who love them. Love reigns supreme over all. The essence of love, while elusive, pervades everything, fires the heart, stimulates the emotions, renews the soul, and proclaims the spirit. Only love knows love, and love knows only love. Words cannot express its depth or meaning. A universal sense alone bears witness to the divine fact. God is love, and love is God. Let's just ponder that for a moment. And together we say, and so it is.
Good morning.
Good
morning, Miss Celia.
You know, I was thinking, I haven't sung for a live audience since I was here last. Truly, a live eye-to-eye audience. Lots of screens. Lots and lots of screens. So this is a treat for me. So I'd like to sing a song that I wrote after I spent some time in upstate New York in a retreat with one of Swami Vivekananda's disciples. I can't pronounce his name still. It's like Swami Niki Stolahanda. I'm still working on it. And during one of the breaks, I spoke to a man named Peter who'd been teaching meditation since the year that I was born. And that's a good long time, so I thought he might have some wisdom for me. And I asked him if he could give me one kernel of wisdom, what would it be? And he said, from my teacher from India, love all, trust few, and follow the one. So I wrote this song. Love on, do as thou will, harm none, trust few and follow the one, true voice within you, and let compassion sing and be the one true thing that fuels your actions. Be still, release your will to the eternal divine, beyond all space and time. Oh, love, love, love. They say we should love ourselves, but nobody shows us the way to love. It's nothing that can be done. It's simply what we become when we surrender to the one true one. Speak truth, be real, honor what you feel with those who will listen, and listen to divinity and all. Surrender to the call of kindness within you. Let go, unconditional. There's nothing out there can feed your soul. No, it's all within you. Love, love, love. They say we should love one another. Nobody shows us the way to love. It's nothing that can be done. It's simply what we become once we surrender. We cannot be broken, simply impossible.
Whoa, so good to have you in the house. Oh my goodness, thank you, Celia. You got me this morning. I'm a little, some tears in me this morning. You know, it's one thing. See, what's it been, about a year we've had you upstairs?
Yeah.
So we had this wonderful way we came together, and she was looking for a place to create her studio. And the pandemic hit, or vice versa. I can't
stay a
remember.
couple months.
Yeah. Well, now we can't let her leave because she does crazy things up there that I get to benefit from in the daytime. But let me say what I figured out just now. It's not as good as having you in the room. So thank you. So good to, really just have you professionally in this sanctuary. And we are happy to provide an audience for you. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. How beautiful and wonderful it is to stand here and just gaze out at the life in front of me. We did have our leadership retreat yesterday. It was both practitioners and the board members, and we are a little bit high and giddy from the whole experience. We did spiritual practice together. We don't have the opportunity to do that, you know. And so Clyde said it's been a couple of years since we did it. That's because 4 days before we were scheduled to meet at the Franciscan Renewal Center last year, we were turned away because we all went on lockdown. So we would have had a retreat last year. I would just remind you of that. And but now I think we're a little spoiled. We liked what happened yesterday. We liked it a lot. It's, I think, what a part of the reason that I can stand here and just see the radiance of you sitting here in the sanctuary. So I have a very, I'm going to use the word special, and I think I prepared a special message, and I had to write it earlier in the week because of all the activities we had on Friday and Saturday. And so when I woke up this morning to get myself mentally prepared to deliver it, I realized it really is a special message, and I feel privileged to be able to present it to you. The title of my talk is, And God Begins. Good morning, everyone online. Good to see you too. And God Begins. And I found that from a quotation when I was reading one of my favorite spiritual booster books, and that is This Thing Called You by the wonderful Dr. Ernest Holmes. And here are the words that come from that book from Dr. Holmes. Always remember that the divine presence is ever with you, and that there is no place where you leave off and God begins. So there's a ring of familiarity in that as you hear the twist on the end, because there's as we look at the works of the classical philosophers, we remember that there's a quote that it was interesting in doing the research. It's attributed to lots of different people through lots of different centuries, and they all said it a little bit differently. But Holmes is referencing an idea that says this: God is a sphere. You know, think of God as a circle, which is interesting that we do start with that in our teaching symbol. That everything's in that. God is all, and we are all in that circle together. But God is the sphere whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. The center is right where we are. You are always standing in the center of your very own universe, but you are standing in the center of spirit itself. And the thing is that there is no circumference. You know, that's the perimeter. There is no outer boundary. We are all in it, and it is in us. And I love that. The center is absolutely everywhere. So that's what I want to talk about this morning, about that way. There's something at the the divine, the center of us, the divine expression of truth in our the DNA of our own physical makeup is not separate from God, that full intelligence and wisdom of the universe, that which created all the universe, is right where we are. So there is no place where I stop and God begins, and that's true for you too. I also thought when I wrote that statement, and God begins, when I start the talk and I put the title at the top of the page and I'm working it out there, I thought, that another piece of truth about those words is that God is always in a state of beginning. That is the essence of life. That every moment is a brand new moment, and we are always beginning. So we have this great symbol of day and night, and we often talk about the way we wake up, and every day is like a blank slate and a fresh start if you let it be. If you don't drag from yesterday what you don't need today, or if you don't worry about what's about to happen tomorrow. If we can stand in that center and be aware of that, then we are standing in the wholeness of the divine truth. And so it is an absolute beginning. Not just is God always in a state of beginning, but so are we. That's good news. That's really good news. So all of us spiritual thinkers, and I would include anybody in the room or listening to the sound of my voice, I would say that we are all gathered here because we're curious or hungry for a little more spiritual information. And I think that what happens to people that make an effort to have some kind of an encounter with information that has to do with these bigger things, every now and then we will have the opportunity to sort of bump into God. And I think it was well represented in the way the line in the song that Celia just sang was that you can't, how did you say it? Nobody can teach you what love is. You can only become it, right? We can only open ourselves to have that experience of it, let it express through us. And so every now and then we bump into God by way of having what I like to call a holy encounter. It's what we do. And when we're in that state of mind where we sort of are taken in the awe of some realization that crosses our mind in a moment, I like to think of that as the beginner's mind. See, the beginner's mind is a Buddhist concept, but that what that implies is that when you're starting again, when you are beginning again from a fresh, clean place, then you aren't bringing any of the old stuff with you. So beginner's mind is a fresh, you're not weighed down with any baggage of all this stuff or defending ourselves against this. This is so prominent right now. We're defending ourselves against all the loud opinions that are slightly different than the way we choose to believe and the way that we walk through our own lives. So that's a really beautiful premise to think about, that we start from the beginning again. And because I do believe that we are here to serve each other, I'm grateful that there are some of us who are courageous enough to dare to look for a God of love as we dare to look deeply into each other. That's a quote from Dr. Ernest Holmes that I have paraphrased because I use it all the time, and I hate to repeat myself, but man, that's good. That's good. Do we dare to look for a God of love by way of looking long and deeply into each other? So I think that sometimes when we have encounters with each other that don't feel godlike, when there's something bristly going on and maybe we're experiencing a difference of opinions or, opposing views, or we're creating friction in the way that we're showing up together, it would be tempting to think that God's not there. But right in the middle of all of it is the divinity, is spirit itself. There is no place where I stop and God begins. There is no place between me and you, Julie, where there isn't God. There's no separation, there's no division. And so I really believe, and I speak from this sort of frame of mind, or I reveal my biases when I tell you things like this. But I think that it feels risky to us to look for God in controversial situations. And therefore, we just don't, it's not even on the forefront of our minds. And I think that if we looked for God in the middle of conflict, we might change our minds. We might relax. We might recognize, probably not in the moment, but a thread of the truth of the reality is that there's this view and there's that view, and it appears that we are on different sides. But remember, there's always two sides to every story. And in the middle of that, the God stuff, there is a thread of truth that we both views are aligned to. Some thread of truth. But we get ourselves in the way, forgetting that there's something perfect unfolding, even in the bristling, that there is something perfect unfolding in the conversation that lies there waiting for us as an opportunity to find the way the divine is still desiring expression even at that moment, or especially at that moment. So I do think it's tricky. Years ago, I stumbled on a spiritual story that I liked so much, and I don't even remember where I first read it. But it's a story about a man who wanted to know the place that God lived. And he devoted his entire life to traveling everywhere he could, looking for the place where God lived. And he traveled around the world, and he searched for many lifetimes. It was so important to him to find that place where God lives. And one day, he was in a wooded area. And he's moving through the woods, and he sees a clearing, and he sees a house, like a log cabin, a real earthy, wooden, log cabin-y kind of house. And he sees that it has a front porch and a couple steps that go up the porch. And there's a sign hanging above the stairway. And the sign says, "The place where God lives." Imagine his joy, how this feeling of accomplishment. This is a goal of lifetimes, and I have found the place where God lives. And he excitedly approaches the house, and he walks up the steps, and he gets up to the door, and he's so excited, he starts thinking about what he's going to say, and he picks up his hand to knock on the door, and something washes over him. And he realizes that if he knocks on the door and God answers the door, he will be standing before the truth of all truths. And he will have to let go of everything he has ever believed. And so he paused, and he turned around, and he tiptoed so he wouldn't creak on the little wooden floor. He goes down the steps, and he disappears into the woods. I think that it's a provocative story that really invites us to contemplate the deeper meaning here. Would any of us really want to face truth if it meant we had to give up some of our cherished beliefs? What if there is a risk that something you feel passionate about is not the full truth, and that somebody who opposes you has a piece of the full truth, and it may not look like it agrees, but would we be willing to let that down? And I would say that I think, given that same situation, most of us cherish our beliefs. So we miss opportunities because we hang on to what we know. That's why beginner's mind is so inviting. It's such a good spiritual concept. I was doing my research, and I was thinking, what am I actually talking about here? no place where I stop and God begins. And I thought, we're talking here about beingness. We're talking about the essence of our being. We're talking about that invisible, hard to understand concept of, I actually think love is a better word, because sometimes we get skewed by the word God or spirit. Or I like how, Kathy, you always say, the God of my understanding, the way that I get it, right? And I don't even think you say God of understanding. You have a beautiful vocabulary for the way you talk about that infinite truth. But so I started looking up quotes on beingness, and I found a great one from the well-respected psychologist Evelyn Underhill, who did a lot of work when she was living on the path of the mystic. She wanted to understand the psychological part of spirituality. These are her words. We mostly spend our scattered lives conjugating three verbs: to want, to have, and to do, keeping us in perpetual unrest, forgetting the fundamental verb to be. And being is the essence of spiritual life. That's a lovely quote. You'll be able to find that quote in the newsletter this week. But it's human nature for us it's not bad to want things, right? It's human nature that we just accumulate goodies and stuff and things that we desire to have. And it's human nature that we desire to be in loving relationships. Those are all a part of the God-given gifts. The very fact that it's a desire helps us see that there's something divine at the root of it, or you wouldn't have it. And so I love to remind us that everything you desire can be traced back to something divine, to some quality of God that desires. There's this divine urge within you, that something that is craving expression in our livingness. And sometimes it can distract us from being. That's where we get sort of sidetracked in the whole idea of beingness. Excuse me. This year, the circumstances that we have lived through in our lives, it has shifted our personal environment, the little world we live in, the center of our little world, wherever that may be, became quieter and gave us opportunities to include more being. And so I think the vast majority of us have had a little more stillness. We have slowed down. We've had an experience of quietness and beingness without really calling it a spiritual practice. And yet we know, of course, that there too is God. I looked up in the glossary of the Science of Mind textbook. I wanted to see if Holmes gave us a definition for beingness, and he did. He said that being is that which exists actually or potentially, right? Things that you don't see in form yet, potentially. It's things that exist actually or potentially, but there is but one source of being. It is God, and we are all connected to that source at all times. It's a source. It's the givingness of God. We don't have a belief here that you have to earn the grace of God by being a good person or try to be a better person. What we understand is that there is a givingness of God. It is a pouring out of the grace of God into our lives, and it is ever available to us. And our only job is to be that receptacle that can receive it. And so we open ourselves to participate in that action of receiving. Listen to this quote from Dr. Holmes, also from the book, This Thing Called You. This one really made me think. Your endeavor is not to locate the divine presence, right? We don't move through lifetimes looking for the place that God lived. It's a good fable, but we don't do that. You don't endeavor to awaken the activity of the law. The law is always working in our lives. That's why we don't fly through space. We got gravity, and spiritual laws are just like that. It is rather to become aware of this presence and its activity flowing through you that is your endeavor. Right? Just to become aware, and that's why it's so rich to come sit in community or sit in your living room and be listening to a message that reminds us again and again that right where we are, God is, that there's no place that stops, that the fullness of all of our desires are always within our reach. And I love that Emma Curtis Hopkins said, as much as you want your good wants you. I felt like I said that alone. Let's do it again. As much as you want your good wants you. That's good. Moving about the planet, because I can hear that. It's simplified. It takes the work out of it, and sometimes that slows us down. So we're not searching, but we're seeing, and the experience of seeing God is not going out to look for it, but it is expecting to see it, to know it's right in front of you. And as we create a sort of a joyous expectation around bumping into all this divine stuff that I call God, is a great source of joy. And it also is a part of how we activate the law to move in that forward way, or toward us in a way of allowing us to have those desires revealed in the way that we live and move and have our being in this thing called life. So right in the middle of every experience we are having is that, all of that in its fullness. If there's any secret to life, if there's any secret to life, and it shouldn't be a secret because it makes me laugh to think about it, but I think this teaching, and the teacher, I guess. Dr. Holmes said that I don't think he gave a lecture, which, remember, in the beginning, all he did was lecture in these big lecture halls. I have not heard a recording where he hasn't said these words. You can help me finish this one too. There is a power and a presence in the universe. It's a power for good, and you can use it. There's a power in a presence for good. It is a power that is greater than we are, and we can use it. And man, that's a divine pattern. That is a beautiful way of understanding the organic flow of life for the good of all of the universe. It's like this master plan that's encoded in not just us, it's encoded in everything. It's that evidence of the great intelligence of the universe. And so that divine power is never a step away from you, because its center is everywhere. And there's no place where we leave off and God begins. Authentic empowerment happens the moment we realize it's greater than I am. It's greater than I am, so I can rest. I don't have to do all the work. I don't even have to do all the mental work. I can recognize the presence. I can become aware of that flow of life. And it's not my strength, it's the strength and power of something that created me that's greater than I am, and that there is a rhythm in which I can find my movement and flow of life for my own self and be there. I love that scripture. One of the bennies of being an old fundamentalist is that every now and then these old scriptures pop in my mind, and I just love it. They turn me on so much because I hear in my head sometimes, especially when I need it. It's gorgeous how it just shows up. I'm strong in the Lord and the power of his might. Right? but you got something really hard in front of you. I'm strong in the Lord and the power of his might. And then that leads me right into remembering, right where I am, that power is. And it is greater than I am, and I can use it. So you already have everything you need. You already have everything you need. I have everything I need. The plants that are thriving everywhere on the planet again have everything they need. The birds have everything they need. Aren't the birds a good illustration? They know how to migrate. They got something in them. They know how to get where they need to be, and then they know how to build nests, and they know how to, man, they're a beautiful, simple illustration of that infinite intelligence that's embedded in all of life that knows how to do what it needs to do for us to thrive. Remember Gary Zukav? Some of you remember Gary Zukav from the early, we all saw him on Oprah probably 20, 30 years ago, I don't know. Could it be that long? And I love Gary Zukav because he has this really gentle spirit, unlike me. He's calm and quiet. But when he writes or speaks, there's a boldness to those words. So I kind of hear it if I'm reading. It's kind of fun to imagine him almost like a cartoonish character, speaking loudly. But he said these words. I just stumbled on these. Also under the seeking some quotes on being. Gary Zukav said, when the personality comes fully to serve the energy of the soul, I love this because we're always making the ego the bad guy, but here he's saying, of its soul, that is authentic empowerment. This is the goal of the evolutionary process in which we are involved, and it is the reason for our being. Didn't Underhill say almost the same thing? It is the essence of our spiritual life, she says. So, wow. Your personality, whether you like it or not, it's we all got bristly places, or we all got a little codependency hiding in there somewhere. We all got the whole package, right? But your personality is where your gifts are. And as you recognize that, you can then align yourself to use those gifts to serve the energy of your soul. I just feel this expansive movement in consciousness. When I read a statement like that, it's like I just feel that things get bigger. And this is the goal of the evolutionary process. This is what's happening on the planet right now. We are evolving. It is a process. It is a stretching and a contracting, just like all life, just like the way things are born. There's this process that is it part of an evolutionary process, and we are involved in that process. If you are alive on the planet right now, and apparently you are, then there is a reason for your being. There is a reason for our being. Yeah, let's be patient with our quirkiness, and let's be patient with the way other people's ideas might trigger you, or be more loving when there's a conversation where there are two different sides to the story and you're not feeling heard. Let's use that in a better way. So everything around us is filled with that perfect intelligence and desiring to work in harmony with that process. And even a stalk of corn knows its reason for being. I'm a little warm. Clyde, would you put get the air circulating again, please? Thanks. So I have a story, speaking of corn. I learned a few things about corn in the last couple of weeks. I loved it. You said a kernel. Somewhere in your thing you went, a kernel, and I went, I'm going to talk about corn today. And so I stumbled on this. I found a new author that I'm so in love with, and she's Native American, and she writes like a poet. Her writings are so exquisite that I just read it as part of my spiritual practice lately. And she told this story about corn and the way that the indigenous of the native tribes for thousands of years they did the planting of the gardens. And that they would not plant things in rows when they began to understand agriculture. They would plant mounds of things, and they would plant 3 sister seeds together. And so the Native Americans speak to this as the story of the 3 sisters. And so they take a kernel of corn. Is a kernel of corn the seed, or is the seed? Is that where we get the corn seeds from, the kernels? So they would take a kernel of corn, they would take a bean seed, and they would take a squash seed. They would make a mound of dirt, and they would make a little hole and stick all 3 seeds in the same hole. Cover it up, and then let nature do what nature's going to do. Now, they passed this wisdom down for thousands of years. This is how you plant the produce that you intend to eat once it comes to fruition. When the colonists came over, you got the first people that come over here, and they're observing how the Native Americans are growing their crops. They thought it was ridiculous. They thought it was silly. They thought somebody should tell the Native Americans how to do it, that things need to be planted in rows, and it needs to be tidy, and it's easier to harvest, and all of that. But you know what we know now? That when we plant things like that in a mound, when we mix those 3 seeds, corn and beans and squash, any variety of any of those, you put those 3 seeds in the ground together, you produce more fruit or vegetables than you do when you plant them in tidy little rows. Right? So, you hear those stories about the corn. Do you know that on a hot day in July, a stalk of corn can grow 6 inches in a day? 6 inches in a day, and they say that you can hear the corn grow, but it's true. You can hear the corn. I know I see all the people that have grown gardens or done farming or whatever. It's so funny to me because I'm a California girl. I knew nothing. I'm a city girl. But I've never grown corn. I've grown tomatoes, sometimes on accident. But the corn grows very quickly, and you can actually hear it. They say if the wind is not blowing and everything is still, that there are sounds that the corn makes. And so I looked it up, and I read that as the stem stretches, there are these internodes, they call them internodes, but they're like water capsules in the stem of the corn. And as the corn grows, and because it grows so rapidly, they pop and they make noises, and you can really hear the corn growing. And then here was the most fun thing I learned. This is the best trivia. I think one of my most favorite pieces of trivia. You know the silk in the corn? That the silk, every tiny little thread of silk is like a water tube that goes down from the top, and it connects to its very own individual kernel of corn. And that silk has to be pollinated. If it isn't fertilized, it doesn't make a corn kernel. And that's why if you peel a corn open and you see towards the bottom of the cob that there might be a little kernel of corn missing here and there, and that's because that piece of silk didn't get pollinated. Isn't that fascinating? We don't even like that stuff. We open the corn and then we take all this time to try and get all that. But those are little, really important pieces of the whole process. And by the way, I understand that Nancy Noel has an excellent recipe for corn on the cob it's made really easy. We talked about you, Nancy, at the retreat yesterday because I gave everybody a cob of corn. So here's the story of how the 3 sisters, why they call these 3 seeds the 3 sisters. This is so beautiful. The corn comes up first. The corn, because it has a quality of starch in it, has an ability to attract the moisture. It pulls the moisture out of the soil, and then that water meets the starch and turns it into sugar that fuels a rapid growth of the corn. And so the corn comes up first. And then a little bit behind the corn, guess who sprouts next? See the real farmers. The middle, huh? Yes, the middle sister is the bean. So the bean stays in the ground longer. And you can imagine that it's a little harder for her to pull in the water, and especially because the corn is kind of hogging most of the moisture at first. And then once the corn gets going, the bean starts swelling, and eventually that bean breaks in half. There's two halves, and do you know, I didn't know this, you're going to all laugh, you probably all know this. Do you know that there's two leaves already ready inside the two halves of the bean? So it splits open, it starts shooting roots down to the ground, it puts a little shoot of a stem that breaks through the soil, and voila! Now the corn's about 6 inches tall when the bean sprouts. But the baby sister, the squash, oh, she just takes her time. She takes maybe 2 weeks after the bean sprouts, before the bean comes up, and then she starts to show her face. Now, while they're waiting for the baby sister to make her way, the bean is now growing pretty good. And what happens is the leaves of the corn create a variance in the light that's really healthy for the starting greenery of the beans. And so the light, it's just perfectly filtered light. The bean's growing and really happy, but just like the middle child, halfway there, the bean changes its mind and it starts growing a vine. Instead of all the leaves, it starts growing a vine, and the vine is brilliant. The vine is so intelligent. The vine has touch receptors that are looking, what are they looking for? Something to climb on, right? So the vines now are going out, and the vine is looking for that stalk, and the corn, the older sister, is standing there prepared to take care of the little sister in the vine, so that the vine finds the stem of the corn, and then very gracefully she begins to wrap herself around the bottom of the corn. It does no damage to the corn at all, and then the mission is to find that vertical support. And the corn is happy to do that because the corn's the older sister. So that vine, think of it, is an upward spiral. Does that sound familiar to those of you who have listened to me before? I'm always talking about that way that in spiritual writings, we speak of life as forever and ever expanding in an upward bound spiral. So there you have the story of life unfolding for us in such a beautiful way. Now, the squash, the late bloomer, the youngest sister, she doesn't grow up. Squash grows horizontal. So these two are connected and married, and now the bean begins to flower so that she can grow beans. And because the vine is spiraled around, it will support the beans so they don't lie on the ground and they can be good, healthy fruit or vegetable. And the squash now is looking for light, and there's not enough light down here, so she goes out in all directions on the ground to gather her own light, and she has really big, broad leaves, right? Have you done, everybody's grown squash. Try to give zucchini away when you plant it too much. Yep. And those broad leaves are prickly. They're bristly, and the caterpillars don't like them. So those prickly, spiny things on the leaves of the squash discourage the insects, but also those big, broad leaves shade the ground and help keep moisture in the earth that is then there for the bean and the corn. And there is a way they all work together for the benefit of the whole. Isn't that amazing? So eventually, we see that they all have a purpose. The squash reduces the weeds and repels the insects, and the corn has a lot to do with the way the light shadows and moves, and then the beans. Maybe you know this. The roots of the beans convert nitrogen in the soil into nutrients that then are like fertilizer, fueling the corn and the beans and even the squash and even itself, the bean. So we are talking about a perfect organic symmetry of form where things come together and blend and support each other, and there is a harmony and a beauty, really, in the way this support unfolds. And more than that, if we eat that way, if we harvest those three things and prepare a meal, put a spread on a table, we are now consuming corn and squash and beans. If you eat any one of those alone with nothing else, it is not life-sustaining, but when they are combined, they become a perfect triad of nutrients that can support human life. So there's something really gorgeous in seeing the completeness when each of us brings our gift. I think we are created to be of service to each other. Yes. The intelligence that created all of life had a plan for us, and we need each other. And I love seeing the wisdom, the intuition that comes out of the indigenous traditions where they just passed it along. And now we have, scientific evidence. We can say, oh, well, it produces more food. Oh, there's a reason they work well together. And it's a beautiful story, as are we. So I want to close this morning with a quote that sort of strings together everything I've said. It comes from Ernest Holmes, and these are just exquisite words. I also will make sure this is in the newsletter for you if you like the quote. Even though we may be lost in the wilderness, we should not forget that the very power which created the wilderness is the power that builds the path for us to return to the Holy Land. And that's what I wanted to say today. So I think we should pray, and I would invite you to just get comfortable right where you're seated. Find your center. And remember that indeed there is no place where we stop and God begins. Because right where we are, at the very core of our own being, is the full presence of God, the giver of all life and the source of every good gift. Right here at the center, we meet love. So we just breathe and we feel the love of God at the center of our being. And we know that love is the strongest force in the universe. It is the impulse of all of life. And so when we recognize the love of God moving in this room or moving at the center of our own being or as we sit in our homes, we know that that movement is the activity, the divine activity of perfect life. And we can be assured that we have found our way to that flow, that stream of goodness. And it allows us to remember that all healing, all things that we desire to be healed, whether it is a woundedness, whether it is something in a relationship that we desire to have smoothed over, whether it is the condition of our finances, that all things are healed by the revealing of a higher truth. And so we raise our heads in glory. We embrace that Godward gaze and we open ourselves as we see reality, that we can see as God sees, that we can realize with real eyes the truth of our being. We have found our way yet again to sense the essence of our being, to stand in a spiritual truth that does not have sides or boundaries, because it is all inclusive. It is that essence of the center is everywhere and the circumference is nowhere, because this is the way life is. All of life, the plants and the birds and the bees and the lizards and the sweet little domesticated pets that we dearly love, all of life represented in this great cycle and activity of aliveness. And so we find our way in our relationships, in our spiritual communities, in our families, in our circles of friends. We find our way to put aside our biases, to know that what we believe and the issues that we stand strongly in can be relaxed. And we don't have to change our stand, but we can expand our ability to recognize that God is still right there in the middle. And so even our bristly thoughts or ideas or the oppositional ways we bump into each other sometimes, there's still a big, beautiful blessing right there. There is a healing that is being called forward. It is indeed a call for love as we are revealing higher and higher levels of truth in our lives every time we remember. There's a power in the universe that's greater than we are. It is God. It is love. It is a power for good. And here we are, using it at the same time as we call out the words, use me, Lord, use me. So there is only one mind, one life, one power. And how grateful we can be in all the qualities of healing and revealing truth come in that sense of a risen consciousness. And so this day we accept, we receive, we become aware of that grace that is pouring into our lives right now. We open ourselves, our hearts, and our minds. We allow ourselves to be the vessels to be filled, and we know indeed there is a healing going on, that we can walk courageously through everything in our lives and our situations and conditions, because we know that there too is God, and that if there are loved ones we are concerned about, we know that in the center of their lives is God also. So I feel this gratitude welling within me, grateful for this awareness of the triune nature of God and of life. I release these words in immense gratitude into the law that always responds to us, yes, my child, yes. We release it, and together we say, and so it is. Amen, amen.
Yeah, good stuff.
I had a nature talk for the everyday goddess.
Yes, they do call me the everyday goddess. True. I love that. So many kernels of wisdom. Love it. Just want to let you know I am doing a concert series all year long online, and they're all rewatchable. So if you go to my YouTube channel, Celia Online DOT.com, just spell all that out, Celia Online DOT.com, you'll have access to all of them. And the next one is on June 20th for summer solstice. And you're welcome to join live for that. It's always 5 p.m. Pacific time. This next song, I'd like for you to consider listening to it not as Celia singing to you, but the divine singing through Celia singing to you. It's called Cherish and Adore. I am the air you need to breathe. I am the water that gives you life. I am the earth beneath your feet. I am the fire within your heart. I am the vision you need to see. I am the voice you long to hear. I am the skin you yearn to touch. I am. And if you gave to me your wishes, you could ask and it would all be given. And if you only gave your permission, together we would soar. We would soar over. We would soar over all of the magic you've forgotten, all the times you knew there was more, and I would remind you to cherish and adore. I am the wisdom within the womb. I am the passion within your heart. I am the fire within your mind. I am the light that guides your way. I am the goddess that brings new life. I know what the oracle has to say. I am. And if you gave to me your wishes, I would teach you how to catch those fishes. And if I only had your permission, together we would soar. We would soar over. We would soar over all of the magic you've forgotten, all the times you knew there was more, and I would remind you to cherish and adore.
Thank you, Celia. Just feel that energy. So one thing that reminded me of Reverend Karen's message is 30 years ago when I was taking the foundations class, and I really accepted that I am God expressing. I'll never forget that it changed my life forever. So now is the time to celebrate our abundance, the abundance of our community and the abundance of each one of our lives right here and right now. So I want to remind everybody that we are not pastoring the offering plate, that in the back of the room and also in the bookstore area, we have the black boxes where you can drop off your gift, your money gift, if you choose to do so. And then online, we have a donate button on the website that you can donate to the center. But so now let's say our giving affirmation together. I live in a consciousness of good. Divine love blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, and so it is.
Okie doke. I'm going to skip the song. Yeah? I just made an executive decision. I don't know why I'm asking anybody. So we're going to close out the service, but I have 2 notes I taped up here. Thank you for doubling back in case I forgot. But I have 2, actually I have 3 notes. Okay, so one, if you're watching on, if you're viewing on your device, and you would like to follow up on some of the archival stuff that's already been done, or you want to know more about the center, please check us out at our website at wvcsl.com. And we have a pretty cool website that's easy to maneuver, so you'll want to do that. Secondly, next Saturday at 2 p.m., we are honoring and celebrating the life of Bill Lanham. That's Dora Reed's father. So it'll be the first actual service we're having in the sanctuary since, for more than a year. And so we invite you to participate in that. We would love to see everybody love Bill. How could you not love Bill? Bill was a people person. And then I'm also beginning a class. I put the wrong note back here that I'm starting. I'm going to be teaching roots, and I'm teaching the certificated classes in 4-week segments, the way I was doing before the pandemic started. So anybody can take it, even if you're not interested in acquiring continuing education units. But the 4 weeks of Troward that I'm going to be starting on June the 16th will be on Wednesdays from 1:30 in the afternoon till 3:30 in the afternoon. And I'm going to be doing that hybrid. So what that means is you can come here and sit in a classroom environment, but I will also be using Zoom. Pray for me. I promise you greater success if you're in the classroom. I'm not so sure how I'm going to do on Zoom alone, but I'm doing it. I'm tired of not teaching. So we're teaching, it'll be the first segment of Roots. Some of you have already taken Emma Curtis Hopkins. In Roots, we study the 3 biggest influences of Ernest Holmes, and the third one is Emerson. And I'm actually going to be offering Emerson when Roots is done in June, and I've scheduled the date. I think it starts sometime in July. The class will be $40 for 4 weeks, and you'll find all the information in the newsletter this week, how to register for the class and how to play if you want to join us in that. So I am complete for the day. I don't know, should we sing? Do you have the music cued? Give me a thumbs up. And I know you like music. Okay, we're going to close with a little Eddie Watkins Jr. And it seems like it has a slow start. Just hang in there. It gets good.
Everybody stand.
Yeah, let's stand.
Am I strong enough to bear the burdens that sometimes come living this thing called life?
What a great voice.
Am I wise enough to make the right decisions when I'm standing at the fork in the road? Sometimes I wonder and ponder, only to realize I'm not alone, and there's nothing I have to do on my own, because I am the place where God is, moves and breathes and has his being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God is, moves and breathes and has his being. I am the place where God shows up. Will I have enough to do the things I need to do to take care of myself? Will I have the health of mind and body to live a life of grace and holiness? Sometimes I wonder and ponder, only to realize I'm not alone and there's nothing I have to do on my own, because I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has his being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has his being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place. I am the place where God. You are the place. Moves and breathes and has. We are the place where God shows up.
Never forget it. You are the place where God shows up. Have a blessed week. Remember, pray often, love much. See you again soon. Love you.
Thank you.